Let's go.
YouTube, what is up? We are back with another day, and we are ready to rip some snatches. We got snatch balances today. We got suicide snatches. We got regular snatches, and we got some squats. It should be a pretty electric and fun day. And the body's feeling good and ready to roll. We got some quad broad jumps to start just because we got to beat K-Dot. He challenged me to a quad broad jump off. I think 11.2 meters is his record to beat, which I think is like 32 feet. I'm going to measure it here just to make sure I got that right. But we'll warm up, hit some of the snatch balances and some of the jumps together. We'll go into the suicide snatches, finish up with some regular snatches, some squats. We'll do some of our normal snatch warm-ups with that prone dislocate in that overhead band position, and we'll hit some hangs just to warm up and get those shoulders nice and loosey-goosey and ready to roll. Should be able to start off the week ready to rock and roll. So let's get after it. Let's go.
All right, we got our third set of these squat snatch balances here. We had these 2 weeks ago. I really enjoyed these. Really felt the bounce out and that lockout position really strong. We're just gonna keep building them up. We got sets of 5 here. We're pairing these with those quad broad jumps, so we're keeping the regular shoes on, which makes it a little bit more difficult for my mobility to get underneath. But as soon as the quads are done, we'll switch into our ollies and start snatching. So let's get after the set. Let's go. Let's go. All right, we got last set here, then we're gonna get some quad broad jumps, trying to hit 38 feet. Let's rip it. Let's go. Those are pretty sticky without the ollie shoes, but got them in. Let's get these quads. Now we got a couple attempts at this quad broad jump. 11.2 meters is K-Dot's record today to beat, which was like 36-ish feet. And then he said his farthest ever was an 11.4, which I believe is like 37.5 feet. So if we get 38 feet here, we'll be good. Let's rip it. Oh! Right at 37 feet, but we got more in us. Let's go. 37 feet, 5 inches. Let's do one more jump here. Let's get it. Oh, yeah. Let's go. 38.4, 38.4.5, 38.5. That was a massive PR. Let's fucking go. All right, then our first snatch of the day after those snatch balances are these suicide snatches. So it's a high pull, and instead of just repeating that high pull, now we got that actual suicide snatch underneath it. So we got 3 sets of 5. High pull, as soon as we get it here, last second, snap those elbows back and rip. K-Dot wants us starting at the bar, keeping it pretty light, and making those 5 reps clean. So let's get it here. All right, I like the feel of that long delayed pull into that snap, but I think the bar was just a little too empty for me to feel that whip, so we put 15s on and let's see how that feels. Let's go. Oh, hold it. All right, so after posting all my ollie lifts and making a couple CrossFit jokes, I keep getting questions now in the Q&A asking about my thoughts on CrossFit and if it would ever be beneficial for an athlete to run a CrossFit program. And first off, I gotta say, I'm not joining CrossFit. Don't worry, I'm not selling my soul completely. There might be a time and place where we find an ollie meet, but right now, not really interested in the CrossFit side of things. And I think that's another separate sport that I would have to consume and just probably take a little bit too much of my time. But when it comes to athletes, it's gonna be a little bit of a weird response, but I have seen athletes come in with a background of CrossFit, especially when they're high school or young college age. A massive kind of training base. They're usually pretty jacked. They usually move pretty well. They usually have a decent proficiency with the weights, and they're strong enough. They can do a lot of body weight stuff. And it's so much better than the athletes that have like a shit strength conditioning program or just ripping arms with their buddies, right? And now some of this can be survivorship bias, where like the kids that tell me they did CrossFit, the reason they did CrossFit is because they were good at CrossFit, and the reason they were good at CrossFit is because they were already a good athlete. But still, developing a decent level of proficiency in movements and just having a general base of fitness is something that CrossFit can do for you. Now, would I ever recommend it for an athlete? Absolutely not. I think it is its own sport in and of itself. I think the programming for it, there's obviously good programming around it, and I know good CrossFit gyms that just program in a solid strength conditioning way, but there's also a lot of gyms that just run WODs and just random workouts of the day, and they're just hitting 1,000 kipping pull-ups in a workout, right? And those things aren't necessarily going to be very beneficial for any athlete after a base level of development. The reason I think it does work for a lot of athletes coming in is because it gives them a really good community. It does give them a general base of movement. And CrossFit is one of the few things that kind of gamifies training in a way in which it makes athletes want to show up. And again, an athlete showing up to a shitty workout is so much better than an athlete not showing up to any workout at all. And I think that's something it has power in. But I think it takes that variability approach and just shotgun sprays it a little bit too much. You're throwing a little bit too much shit at the wall. And again, part of that is because it's a sport in and of itself, and it requires skills in and of itself that you're not required to master or spend time on your field. You already have your skills. You already have your technical and tactical things you need to master, and I think you're wasting a little bit of time there. But I also just think a lot of the programming it's just too wild. There's not a lot of base around it. And that would be the biggest difference in a like principled variability approach versus a non-principled workout of the day variability approach, and something I think gets lost with a lot of coaches. Is just because you're adding variability to your workout doesn't mean you're throwing shit at the wall, right? You're providing stimulus, and a structured stimulus that you can progress and regress based off the athlete's needs that day and based off the athlete's skill set and where they want to go and their deficiencies and the things that you feel like they need to work on. So instead of in the CrossFit world where we're just throwing everything at an athlete, if I have an athlete that can't produce force very well, I'm just going to give them a variable ways of producing force so they still get that variability in their training, they still get that movement exploration, and they get that kind of differential learning approach, able to learn how to produce force in a multitude of ways and just learn how to produce force generally as an athlete. But again, in a structured way in which we're trying to funnel them into becoming a better athlete, funnel them into having skill sets they want to develop. And again, I think it's what good CrossFit gyms do, and then they do the same thing and they break down the technical and tactical skills of what the CrossFit sport requires. So I don't want to get straw man there, because I know there are good CrossFit gyms, but again, most CrossFit gyms just program in a principled variability approach way, not necessarily in the CrossFit way of throwing workout of the days of athletes. So I think you do need just a little bit more structure to your workouts. And I shouldn't even say structure, but more direction in your workouts. Like there should be a goal for your stimulus. There should be a goal for the variability that you're providing that athlete. And I think a lot of times when it comes to CrossFit, the goal is to get a workout in and to get that workout done. And again, that is better than doing nothing, which is why I think a lot of high school athletes that come from that background have a better general base because they are doing something compared to their peers who are just playing video games. But I think it wastes time and wastes a little bit of energy that could be better spent funneling that into something a little bit more direct, funneling it into something that you actually want to develop as an athlete. So that's kind of my thoughts on CrossFit. Let's get this last set here. Oh. That was better. Ooh, there we go. All right, let's get some snatches. All right, we got a pretty minimal snatch day today. We got 5 sets at 210 to 220 based off how it's feeling. So we're gonna start at 210 here. It's really got me focusing on that suicide snatch, staying nice and tall. And then one of the cues that he gave me was to shove the elbows back when I get to this point. So I've been trying to keep them high and like rotate through, and it's been a weird feel. Whereas he wants me to snap those elbows back and almost get that whip-like effect. And there was a couple reps in the warm-up sets that I got that I felt that snap, and it was kind of nasty. So I'm hoping we can keep that with this heavier weight and keep ripping here. Let's get it. Ooh. I gotta get a higher pull, but I like that whip. Ooh. Woo. Delayed that pull, that felt kind of nice. All right, last set here. I really liked the delay on that last pull. I almost just meat-headed it all the way up. It was almost like that suicide snatch and then forced it over, which is telling me my current snatch number is definitely a technique issue, because if I can muscle this, which is pretty close to my max, that's embarrassing. But I like the feel of it right now. Let's hold on to that for that last set. Let's go. Oh yeah, let's go. All right, get to some squats. Then we got these Anderson squats with my amazing setup here. We don't have pins on our racks, so we gotta work with what we got here. We got 2 sets of 2. This should be a nice little warm-up set, and we go from there. Let's rip. Oof. We are running out of time. We were supposed to leave for league like 10 minutes ago, so we gotta rip here. Let's go. Legs are feeling good, but the knee's still a little cranky from that hang clean snatch, hang clean I had on Friday of last week where it felt like something kind of tweaked. I'm feeling that at the bottom position here. It feels like something's catching. It feels a little meniscus-y. Don't really love that feel, but it's not really inhibiting anything right now. Hopefully it doesn't get too beat up on the cleans tomorrow, but let's get this. Here we go. Let's go. One more set here. All right, last squat here, and then we're gonna rant in the car and on our way to softball, and then we're gonna hit some nukes. Let's go. Let's go. All right, we'll rant in the car, and then see you tomorrow. Let's get it. All right, YouTube, that is a day, and a pretty good day. I like the feel of those snatches. The squats felt pretty good, and it felt like a good, solid working Monday, man. Nothing crazy, no massive PRs, but just putting in work, chopping that wood. And most importantly, staying consistent to the program and continuing to log them hours on the things that I want to get good at, man. And that's really what training comes down to. And it kind of ties into the question that I wanted to answer today from the Q&As, where a guy asked me how to stop program hopping. He feels like he can't stay consistent with a program, feels like he's hopping all over the place and just wants to dial in on something. And this is something I talked to a consulting client with last week about. And the advice I gave her was sign up for the marathon yesterday. And this is a client that wants to eventually run an Ironman, wants to run a marathon, just wants to do some big tasks to stay kind of dialed in and hasn't signed up for the task. They're worried about the training, they're worried about the buildup, they're worried about they're ready, but they haven't signed up for the actual test. And I think humans are really, really bad at not having an end date, not having a test to train for and study for. I think there are very few things in life that we are intrinsically motivated enough to do without a reward, without a test, without something that ranks us, without something that gamifies it for us. And training for most people is not one of those intrinsic things. For some people it is. For some people the test is the training in and of itself. They love seeing those numbers go up. They love completing programs, and they can find a way to gamify it in and of itself, just by itself. And that's the eventual goal of a good program and a good movement practice, is to eventually get to a point in which the training becomes a test in and of itself, and the training becomes the game in and of itself. But if you're not at that point, it's really, really hard to just say, I'm gonna start working out. I'm gonna stick to these 12 weeks. I'm gonna do this with no external goal in mind, with no end dates, with no tests to study for. And tests to study for is the perfect analogy, because think about yourself in college and how much you studied when there wasn't a final coming up, or how much you studied when there wasn't a test coming up. And most people, it's zero. Most people delay until the week before the test or the week of the test, and then you cram everything in because you actually have something to study for. You have an end date, you have something to test, you have something to gamify for, you have something that matters. And I feel like a lot of people, as soon as sports ends for them, they don't have anything in movement that matters. And we can talk about the health benefits all day and all these logistically good reasons to work out and how beneficial it is. You can say you don't really need a test because you have all these other reasons, but you have all those other reasons to study too. Like being smarter is never a bad thing. Knowing more about a subject is never a bad thing. Becoming better at something is never a bad thing, but think about the amount of times that you've actually done those things without having a test, without having something that matters at the end of the day. And for most people, that answer is 0 or 1, and then the one thing is just something they're just massively intrinsically motivated to do. And if training's not that for you, I don't think you need to fight yourself per se. And I think a lot of people try to fight the human psychology. They try to mental toughness warrior it out. And at some points it is a mental toughness game, and you just do have to be consistent, and you just have to show up, and you just have to stick to the program, especially on those tougher days. But to do that over and over, day in, day out, with nothing that motivates you, with no end test, with not gamifying the psychology of your human brain, I think is a silly task. And it's 100% working harder, not smarter. And it's giving you barriers to go work out and go be a healthy human and go stick to a program and go do something that you want to do. Again, once you get a year
year into training, once you get 2 years into training, the training in and of itself will start to take over this test because you're going to become good at it and because you're going to get in a routine of working out every day and it's just going to become who you are. But to start that journey, give yourself a carrot. Sign up for that marathon yesterday. Sign up for that Ironman, 5K, CrossFit game, Olympic lifting meet, a powerlifting meet, a rec basketball league, whatever it is. Sign up for something that turns into a test so that you have that carrot and you have that reason to train. You have that reason to put 12 weeks of training in and you can see it's in the thing that you want to get better at. And I think that's one of the beauties of having a good test. Having an end date in mind is all of the worry of what should I do goes out the window because you know you have to be ready at a certain date. And when you get to that certain date, you'll find out if what you did was right or wrong. And then you can adjust and then you can learn and you're going to fuck up and you're going to mess up. And that's just going to be part of the journey. But without that test and without that end date, most people don't even start. And then even if you do start, there's really nothing to tell you if you're on the right path or if you're doing the things correctly or if you're making progress. And that's why I really do believe it is important to have a test and have something at the end of the road to motivate you to train for and to give yourself that carrot to get in the door. So stop trying to fight the human psychology, stop trying to fight the human brain, stop trying to mental toughness warrior this out. Sign up for something that's 12 weeks away. Tell a bunch of people that you signed up for it so that you can't get out of it. Spend a little money on it so that you're invested in it and then go and do it. And you're going to find training is going to be such a simpler game because there's this overarching thing and there's this overarching reason to train and there's an overarching reason to show up to the workout. There's this overarching reason to not program hop. And it's going to provide so much simplicity and so much consistency for you that it's going to completely revolutionize your training and movement practice. And you're going to find it easier and easier to show up to workouts. And the last little caveat on the program hopping too was that sometimes it is just a bad program and sometimes it is just a shitty program. And you don't have to beat your head into the wall and again just try to mental toughness your way out of that workout. I think there is benefit, especially early on, in proving to yourself that you can work your way through a crappy program and you can finish the grind and you just prove to yourself that you are somebody that finishes programs, and I think that's important right away. But I also want to have the caveat that I have signed up for programs that I've ran for 3 weeks and I'm like, this program sucks. I was sold on marketing. I was sold on what that person's Instagram page was. I was sold on all the cool things they do. And then you get the program and you get the product and it's just not a good product. And if it's not a good product, you don't have to continue to use the product. It's like buying a 12-pack of a soda you don't enjoy and drinking it all because you bought the soda. Sometimes the soda just sucks and that's okay. And then you just buy a new pack of soda. But if every soda sucks and you're throwing out everything that you buy, it's probably more of a you issue and you probably need to find a test and you probably need to find something that motivates you to train. So pick a task, sign up for it, and start having something to study for. Appreciate you guys watching. Keep chopping wood.